The flesh is weak. For more than 10 millennia, we have lived up to this maxim. For more than 10 millennia, we have endured. For more than 10 millennia, we have defended the Imperium. Mankind teeters on the brink of annihilation and relies on our indomitable strength to survive. We will not be found wanting, for we are the Iron Hands. Follow me, Malkaan Feirros, your Iron Father, and by the blood of the Gorgon, we shall be victorious.
Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important forces, factions, and faces of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace. There is only time for war. And today, we shall be looking at one of the heroes of the Imperium, the Iron Father, Malkaan Feirros. Now, I will always admit that I know the Iron Hands a lot less well than other chapters and legions, for this is partly due to there being a lot less material on them. Alas, during the Horus Heresy, it was Feirros Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, that died during the very first substantial battle of the hated rebellion of the War Master. And from there, the Legion was shattered and did not play a major role in the conflict. They fought as hard as they could, but they were never in enough numbers to be considered a true threat to the forces of chaos. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, Iron Father Malkaan Feirros, soul of the chapter. No living Iron Hand can recall a time when Feirros' sardonic tones did not grace the Iron Council. Nor does any remember another wielding the axe harrow hand during their rite of severance. The lopping of the left hand so that an augmetic fist may take its place is the moment in which a recruit truly becomes an Iron Hand, and makes for a most amaranthine memory. Perhaps oddly for one so ingrained in the chapter's most formative rituals, Feirros is considered something of a maverick by his peers upon the Iron Council. He clings to his emotions with a grip no less iron than that of his left hand, and refuses all augmetics that might ease his transition into a life of pure logic. For Feirros, true wisdom lies in a balance between logic and emotion, a balance that forever eluded fallen Manus. Without the former, there can be no reason, and no certainty on the onward path, but to discard the latter, Feirros believes, is to lose all hope of intuition, an ephemeral concept that no machine has hope of embracing. That Feirros yet holds the rank he does, despite such borderline heretical beliefs, is proof positive of his achievements in the chapter's service. It doesn't hurt that his old pupil, Cardan Stronos, the current voice of the Council, and Iron Hand's chapter master, has often expressed similar views, having many times witnessed firsthand the perils to which a purely logical approach has led his brethren. Thus, Feirros' brothers revere him for his service, and tolerate wry gallows humour, which many of them no longer have the capacity to properly comprehend. Only the wisest realize that the balance Feirros has struck requires greater discipline, rather than less. But such is the way of emotion. Those who suppress it seldom understand its strength. There are those amongst Feirros' peers who believe him a corrupting influence, a cog in the chapter's mighty machinery that might yet bring the whole endeavour to a grinding halt. In truth, Feirros does not seek to overthrow the chapter's long-held values, nor instill revolution in the augmetic hearts of his brothers. He has learnt too well the lessons of old for that. He desires only to serve as a counterpoint to a destructive instinct that has ever led the Iron Hands to seek false solace in the certainty of logic. And if he sways a handful of his battle brothers to recognize this, then he is well content. If the Iron Hands can any longer be said to have soul, That essence resides within Feirros. Feirros' careful balance allows him to serve his chapter in ways no other can. Following Clan Company Raukan's near destruction during the Scarvus ambush, the Iron Council was minded to censure the Raukan entirely as punishment for their weakness. Few of their number were prepared to speak in Raukan's defense, for the facts of the Clan Company's failure were indisputable, and the necessary ties clearly laid out in chapter doctrine. However, Feirros argued long and loud that the company be permitted to prove itself anew under new leadership. After all, was such not the way of all broken machine? But with but one flawed component replaced, the entire mechanism could function again. Ultimately, the staunchly conservative Iron Father Christos aligned his voice with Feirros', though not out of agreement. Over the course of long decades, Christos had come to view Feirros as a relic better suited to the waking sleep of a dreadnought than to the living duties of Iron Father. He seized on Clan Raukan's fate as a chance to prove Feirros' waning to the rest of the Iron Council, only to suffer apoplexy when it was decided that he himself, and not Feirros, would be responsible for reforging Raukan from its battered shards. Too late, Christos realized that Feirros had goaded him, subverting emotions he struggled to conceal in order to achieve his victory. Such deviousness was hardly the manner in which an Iron Hand, much less an Iron Father, was expected to comport himself. But Christos could hardly denounce Feirros without also confessing his own failure of self-control. This was the first time that Christos understood how Feirros' refusal to forsake emotion was strength and not weakness. It was also the first time he acknowledged a begrudging respect. Though the two could never be said to be friends, Christos honored Feirros' victory by working ceaselessly to shape Clan Raukan into a force of which both could be proud. Alas, he failed to learn the lesson Feirros had endeavored to teach, and strove ever for the cold certainty of logic. In the end, his own inflexibility ushered him into the corrupting embrace of the Sapphire King. The period known as the Christosian Conclave is a bleak chapter in the Iron Hand's history. Iron Father Christos, growing ever more inflexible with age, sought to bend the chapter fully to logical means, and logical means alone. Gaining support in the Iron Council, he came close to holding supreme command. This alone should have warned that something was amiss, for it went against the Tempering's primary decree. However, only Feirros and a handful of his protégés, Kardanstronos amongst them, detracted. Even as Christos led the Iron Hands to crush the Gordinian heresy, the chapter teetered on the brink of disaster. Too late, the demon known as the Sapphire King stood revealed as the architect of Christos' ascension. Birthed in the psychic howl of Feirros Manus' death, the demon had long been a hidden mover in the Iron Hands' affairs, goading them into spending away their humanity like coin. As Christos drove the chapter to demonize their wants and needs, the greater the hold their repressed emotions gained upon them. As war raged across Gordinia Prime, the Sapphire King judged the Iron Hands ripe for harvesting, and loosed his demons to the hunt. Corrupted by their own repressed emotions, Christos and his followers were poisoned from within. Passions they had long denied themselves manifested in a gruesome meld of fleshy growths and biomechanical extrusions, as the Iron Hands swelt and mutated into twisted engine spawn one after another. The monstrous abominations turned upon their former brothers with gibbering binaric shrieks. Only those Iron Hands who heeded Kardanstronos' exhortations to embrace and give vent to their anger, their rage, Feirros and Clan Raukan foremost amongst them, were able to resist. Empowered by their unfettered wrath, Feirros and his followers executed the revolting remains of their lost brethren before banishing the Sapphire King amidst a storm of optimized firepower and roaring flames. A hard lesson had been learned, one that the Iron Hands would never forget. When the Iron Hands received word that already inducted battle brothers could cross the Rubicon Primaris and become Primaris Space Marines, Feirros was amongst the first to volunteer. The Primaris' capabilities in battle were undeniable, and to him a clear demonstration of the capabilities of flesh. He welcomed the opportunity to vastly improve his strength and endurance, without need for mechanical enhancement. As master of the Forge, Feirros has access to knowledge of the Omnissiah denied to all others in his chapter, as well as access to arcane wargear and ancient relics. In addition to Harrowhand, he is armed with Gorgon's Wrath, a unique and devastating heavy bolter. In addition, his Signum Array enables him to support the battle brothers around him, presenting them optimal targets and enemy weak points. Feirros can often be seen leading the assault. Harrowhand arcs bright against the gathering darkness. His sonorous voice challenges the all-consuming roar of his servo harness armament. Where he treads, the Iron Hands fight with redoubled fervor. For even Feirros' detractors know that when death at last claims the indomitable Iron Father, an age passes with him. End quote. And with this particular son of Feirros Manus, in Feirros, we see the duality of the Iron Hands, the strange legacy of his passing at the Drop Site Massacre. For despite the carrying call of the Iron Hands being, "the flesh is weak," as far as I read the lore on Feirros, he would never have wanted this to be the case to the extent it is viewed by his sons today. Feirros did not want unnecessary replacement of body parts, saw the strength to be striven for to be more of the soul, of conviction. Yes, the flesh was weak. Yes, iron is strong. But the strength that moves the two, the flesh and the soul, will, was his actual goal. The lesson he tried to impart to his sons, as far as I read it. The death of Feirros Manus at the hands of Fulgrim, his closest brother, led the Iron Hands to a disdain for not only flesh, but emotion as well. Many Iron Hands believe that the Salamanders and Raven Guard should have followed Feirros Manus in his forlorn attack on Horus's lines. Others, the greater part now, believe that it was Feirros Manus' lack of control of his rage that led to his legion being exterminated and his head being taken. That if he had kept control, then he would have fought his way out of the trap and had many survivors to fight on. Basically, his rage unmanned him and led to his death. The weakness of the flesh leading to an over-exaggerated or concentration on the merits of metal was always present. But now the search for logic and expunging of emotions, and thus humanity itself, is a dangerous path for the Iron Hands to tread. Although much has changed over the millennia since the heresy, the Iron Hands that have stayed the course have always stood proud. Yet it can be said that it is the old adherence to the true message of Feirros Manus, the use of not only logic, but also intuition and passion that can lead to wisdom and thus strength. That humanity is strongest when it is true to its nature while controlling it, not expunging it. While the Iron Hands have such warriors and leaders as Malkaan Feirros to help them maintain this middle and moderate path, they will always remain to be one of the strongest and most indefatigable forces the Emperor commands. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. Sorry this one is quite short, or biscuity as I call them, but I'm working on something that is proving a tad more challenging than usual. All good things. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction. If so, then please consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. If you see the worth in what we are doing, then do also consider joining our Patreon, or giving the video a share if that is beyond your present scope. It would be a great boon. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.